India lead by 63 then as stumps is called on day three of this first test at Kanpur. Four wickets fell on day one, six on day two. On day three, we saw 11 fall, all 10 to New Zealand, who went from 151 without loss to 296 all out to give India a lead in the first innings of 49. Are they in front? Are they in front comfortably? New Zealand still in this? What do we have in store for 2 more days in this fascinating test match? We'll ask Wasim Jaffer and Daniel Vittori on ESPN Cricket for Match Day. Let me start with you, Dan. New Zealand started this day with so much promise and hope. They ended with a deficit of 63 with India with 9 Indian wickets in hand. How would they look back at today's day?
I think they would be disappointed, but I think they'd also understand the history of Test matches over here, where this is what India tends to do, and you can have a good start, you can have a good partnership, but um, India fight back, and that's the essence of playing in India. That you have to keep going, you have to maintain for long periods of time, because India, with the way that they bowl and their quality of bowlers, they put together a lot of consistency and economical, and then all of a sudden things happen quickly, and that's what happened today. So to compete with India, you have to get ahead of them on the first inning. So I think they'll be disappointed that they haven't been able to do that.
We've come to expect India to almost be in front always in a home test in recent times, Wasim. We're looking at this surface, how it played on day three. Would you say India significantly in front?
I think so. I think, like I
Hmm.
said before, a lead of 50 runs is not a lot on most surfaces, but on this track, I think it's a significantly lead.
Hmm.
And anything, I mean, anything above 250 is going to be a difficult score going into the fourth evening or fifth day. So I think India definitely ahead, and they look to make a game out of it tomorrow. I mean, obviously they'll go a little cautiously in the first hour, but after that you can expect them to take charge from there.
When you say take charge, you did make the point that run making is not as easy here, right? And sometimes when you have a lead of 100 or 110, you maybe bat differently. Here, I'm sure the players would also, at least numerically, know that this lead may not be much. Do you see India actually making a charge tomorrow? Will it be as easy, or will batting continue to be hard on day four, Wasim?
Batting definitely will be hard. There's no doubt about it. But I expect them to bat better than New Zealand because they know the conditions. So they will obviously put pressure on the spinners. They won't let them bowl, at the right spot for longer periods. They'll obviously be cautious to Southee and Jefferson, but I think they'll put a little bit more pressure on the spinners.
How do you see New Zealand bowling on day four, Dan? They made matters hard. India were in a tricky situation once or twice. It took a partnership between Shreyas Iyer and Ravindra Jadeja to actually bail them out. How do you see New Zealand bowling on day four?
I don't see India taking the game too far away from New Zealand with a batting performance. I think New Zealand will impress with the ball. I think Jamieson and Southee will continue on from where they are, and the key will be how the spinners bowl. And it's not necessarily that they'll take wickets. I think it'll be more if they can fall into line with what India did and be slightly more economical, and not give away that bad ball that probably plagued them a little bit in the first inning. So if there's an improvement from the New Zealand spinners, then I think there's going to be an immense amount of pressure on the Indian batsmen. And as I said before, I don't think they'll get too far away in the game. For
And now you can sense that my first sort of chats and questions to Wazim and Dan are more to do with what's likely to happen in the next couple of days than what happened on day three. And I'll come to a review of what we saw today on day three in just a moment. But Wazim, is that because this is a slightly different test than what we've been used to seeing, at least in recent times at home? We've seen the first test at Chennai against England where you had a flat pitch, where the advantage was significant to England batting first, and then one team was out of it. This is a slightly different test, and would the players also be feeling that?
I think so. I think obviously the run scoring wasn't that easy, especially the run rate. So you can expect that no batters will obviously run away with the game unless you play a blinder. But New Zealand would have expected the kind of start they got. They would have expected to go ahead of India. That is when they probably would have felt that they are ahead of the game. But if you bat slowly and like I said, in India on day three. If you get one wicket, you get wicket, in clusters, and that's exactly what happened. After the second wicket partnership, there was not even a 20-run partnership, so that can happen. That's where I feel New Zealand would be disappointed that they didn't come
Yeah.
close to the Indian target or didn't actually went ahead. That's when actually you can little bit dictate terms as an outsider coming into India.
Yeah, I'd love to go more deep into that. Like that, Wasim Jaffer has set that up because I'm wondering what the sort of review would be then after today. Because if you look at the wickets that fell, you wouldn't say any New Zealand batsman was perhaps too guilty of throwing it away or played a rash shot. India did bowl well throughout, and yet an advantage that they secured was forfeited. So I'm just trying to understand whether New Zealand could have done anything differently, perhaps picked up on the rate at any point to add pressure on India, or can we not afford that sort of criticism to them?
I think it would be a fascinating review within their dressing room
Hmm.
because I think you're right. You can't pinpoint any batsman that made a mistake. You can really highlight what Latham and Young did, and I think they gave a blueprint of how you bat in these conditions. And you'd expect that from Williamson more often than not, and Taylor and Nichols. So they probably didn't quite have the day that they wanted, but it's easy for a team to quickly look at those positives, and it will be around the composure that Latham and Young showed, and the ability to put away the bad ball and wait for the bad ball and deal with the good balls with a solid defense. So this New Zealand team has been so consistent and they're so level-headed that they will look to the positives and they will talk to each other around what those two did well and see if they can replicate it in the fourth innings.
Wasim, same question for you. Whether any batters through that middle order after that start could have decided, let's try something differently. Run making, defending isn't getting us anywhere. We could probably go harder, but then in that case, you're always left open to criticism if it all goes wrong. So, shall we give more credit to India's bowlers today, or shall we say, nah, New Zealand perhaps missed a trick after the advantage they had?
I think so. I think they just played a waiting game, and the Indian bowlers know if no batsman is going to take charge, they know that if they get one wicket, they get into the new batsman, and everything's going to be very difficult for anybody coming in. So I think New Zealand missed a trick. They needed to, put the run rate a little bit. Somebody should have tried because that's when the panic starts. I mean, not panic, but obviously then the captain starts to think whether I need to spread the field, whether I need to take the closing fielders out. But Rahane never did that. Rahane always had everybody close to the bat because New Zealanders were never trying to score quickly. So if you do that, the Indian bowlers know that they can always keep bowling and put pressure because you are not running away with the game.
I wonder if you'd agree with that and you'd second that, Dan, because we did see the field spread pretty quickly when Jamieson and Saudi came together. Now, Wasim uses the word waiting game. It seems like a good gamble to take. At some point the bowlers might tire, might give you some loose stuff. Was it a fair gamble to play that sort of way, or do you go with Wasim? Someone should have tried to maybe change the tempo a bit.
I think Wasim's right. I mean, it's incredibly hard to do in the first test match of a series, and you're trying to get a feel for bowlers, situations, the wicket, and the batsman had come off such a good start in terms of Young and Latham's partnership. So I think the rest of the batsmen wanted to play in a similar manner, but I suppose I think of myself as a spin bowler, any batsman who used their feet or swept or put pressure back on me made me struggle. And when a batsman was just sitting there waiting defending, then the confidence in the spinners rose. And I think that's why Ashwin tried so many things. And that's why Axar and Jadeja just hit a length all day and were almost inch perfect. So in the end, you probably have to be brave in these test matches. Otherwise, this is what's going to happen. You can have good periods, but the Indian bowlers are just too good if you allow them to settle. So who could have taken that role? I think Henry Nichols actually did. And I think as a left-hander, he came in to try it on, and unfortunately it didn't work for him today. But I wouldn't be surprised if he is the guy that can take on those two left-arm spinners.
Interesting. Well, he was probably the only guy who actually played an aggressive shot early in his innings today, and it cost him. Marginal, but it did cost him. Let's talk about those bowlers that stood out today, though. And it's a great day for Akshar Patel. There are only, I think, two more bowlers that have picked up 5 wicket hauls in each one of their first 4 Test matches. Gee, Dan Vettori, what he would have given to be a left-arm spinner in India as against New Zealand. But I'm sure he'll have kind words for Akshar Patel as we look back at this day, Dan, when he was underbowled until the morning session and suddenly became India's most potent weapon at the end of the day. How did you go? What did you make of his bowling?
I think, like we reviewed after when he took those three quick wickets, it was that ability with the new ball, that because he's so accurate, because he bowls from that angle, that batsmen are forced to play. And then when the variations come into play, and like a lot of spinners, I don't think they always mean the variations to happen the way they do. It's the inconsistency of the wicket or the way the ball lands just allows that natural variation. And I think XR and Jadeja exploit that better than most because of their accuracy and because of their consistency. And so they ask questions the whole time. And like we've alluded to, the batsman didn't put pressure back on them. So more often than not, if you're in that spot, you give yourself a chance. And I think that's where XR excels. It's just the accuracy is something to be admired, and something around that consistency that it makes him so great in such a short period of time. So whilst everyone wants to see these big spinning spinners, accuracy is the thing that still wins out over most things.
Wasim, we talk about this so much, isn't it? Jadeja's great strength is his accuracy, and also the fact that pitchers help him, and he perhaps needs pitchers that help him a bit more than other spinners. With no disrespect to him, but this was a fascinating pitch. You think to just test Aksar versus Jadeja, first time that they've played together on home soil, and by the evidence of one innings, you could see Aksar's got that bit more of him. What do you make of just the comparative analysis between Aksar and Jadeja?
I think Aksar bowls a little round arm, Ronak, and that's where he beats the bat when it spins, and the ball that is more dangerous are the one that keeps straight, and that's exactly what happened against the series versus England. The most dangerous ball was the one that kept straight. So he challenges you with both side of the bats. The ball that keeps straight, obviously the leg before and the ball comes into play, and if it spins, then obviously the slips and caught behinds come into play. So that is the reason why the ball that he bowls from round down a little bit on Indian pitches, it's a more difficult one. Jadeja is more orthodox, so obviously you can negate that unless it's obviously a rant turner. So that's where I think Aksar is little ahead of Jadeja on these kind of pitches.
Yep, fair point. So we got that from Aksar and Jadeja. Good day for them, but we spent the whole day without hardly mentioning New Zealand's top scorer. That's generally how Tom Latham goes about his business. So let's give him a little time right now. Use the word blueprint. We spoke a lot about Will Young yesterday, Dan, but Tom Latham works hard for his runs on a pitch where you had to work hard. Perhaps deserved that 100, but found a way to succeed.
Well, I think he's the perfect all conditions opener. I mean, obviously, to be an opener in New Zealand, you have to deal with the seaming ball, and that you grow up on that. But the flip side is when you go to the subcontinent, we haven't had that many openers who have the ability to adapt their game. But I think Tom Latham, almost from the start, has had an ability to play spin. And when he first came to India as a white ball player and batted in the middle order, he had a lot of success in taking on their spinners, particularly with the sweep shot. But I think what sets him apart, and once again, what Wasim's alluded to, is that he is prepared to use his feet. He is prepared to sweep, and therefore he puts pressure back on bowlers. And he doesn't score quickly, and he doesn't do anything reckless, but it's just that busyness that allows him to stay in control. And I always think the good batsmen are the batsmen who control the tempo of the innings, and they don't wait for things to happen. As I said, he's not a big hitter, but he takes the game to the bowlers, and he has an all-round game that's second to none. And quickly, in a short period of time, he's become probably one of our greatest openers ever.
And he's well, that's strong words. And he comes up against, you think, arguably India's best spin attack at home or best bowling attack at home with Aksar, Jadeja, and Ashwin playing together, Wasim, and he's passed that examination quite well the way he handled India's spinners.
He has, and like I said before in the shows, that he's one of those batters in this New Zealand lineup who has played well in subcontinent conditions. Against, he's got a couple of hundreds in UAE. He's got runs last time when India toured. He got 50s. So he's the only one, who plays spin really well, and he's pretty sure about his game. His defense and his attacking ability. So really, fantastic knock considering the kind of bowling that he was facing, the kind of conditions he was facing straight away without any practice game. So full credit to him.
Yeah, yeah. We've also, I think, called him the ambassador for the DRS. Going forward, in case anyone has any doubts on it, he survived what, three of them. So he's done well as Tom Latham en route to getting New Zealand's top score in this game. Before I leave, Wasim and Dan, quick check in on what happened to Shubman Gill versus Kyle Jamieson. Did he just get a good one, Wasim, or again technical questions will arise with every Shubman Gill wicket?
I think he was again. I think like first inning, he was hanging back a little bit. Obviously, the ball straightened and obviously went between bat and pad. But I think that is something which he needs to address. That he hangs back a little bit to the seamers early on. Probably could have played on the front foot, but it was a decent ball. That is what it can happen on these kind of pitches. Anything that goes keeps a little bit straight can cause you trouble. But I
Hmm.
think could have gone forward if I can be a little bit critical of him.
Yeah, 9 wickets to spinners for India, 8 in the first innings, and now 1 for the seamers for New Zealand. And perhaps we should appreciate what Southey and Jamieson have managed to achieve and what otherwise seems to be a test match for spinners.
I think so, and I mean it is New Zealand's strength. It's been New Zealand's strength for a long time in all conditions, even when we have won in Sri Lanka and Dubai. Obviously, the seam has done a great job, whether it be Wagner, Bolt, Southey, and now Jamieson, and the spinners have almost complemented them. So this is what New Zealand expect from their seamers, even in these conditions. But whilst that's happened, it's still so impressive to see these two guys bowl so well, and they'll still be the trump cards in this third innings, and you'll see Kane turn to them a lot, and I think he'll use them as attacking weapons, and probably the spinners as the guys who hopefully can hold it up and produce economical spells like India.
All right. Final question to both Wasim and Dan. They're used to this now. 63-run lead. Where's this test match going to stand at lunch on day 4? Dan Vittori?
I bow down to Wasim. He seems to have got it right every time now, so I'll let him decide, and then I'll agree.
How lazy is that, right? Okay, let's go to Wasim and see if he wants to. Yeah.
I would say 80 runs for 2 wickets in the session next morning.
And that would give India a lead of 140. While we're on that, Wasim, what sort of target do you think will put the game beyond New Zealand if India do have a number in mind?
I think 275 would be a good total. Consider. I mean, how quickly they can get to that total will
Yeah.
give them good time to declare and then probably think of 20 wickets because it's going to be hard. If anybody wants to just defend, then it's going to be hard work.
Yeah, you got to balance time out as well when the game goes into day 4, isn't it, Dan? How much time do India think they'll need, or how much time would New Zealand back themselves to see out a fourth innings if the target is beyond them? So all those sort of questions for you now. Where do you think this game's headed?
Yeah, I think anything over 250 presents a challenge, but I think you're right. There possibly is a game plan to survive, and I also think there's the Kane Williamson factor. I think we have to give him credit that he is the sort of batsman who could produce something special in a fourth innings. So, look, 250 is going to be tough, but I think there are some mitigating factors for New Zealand that can get them into a good position either to save the game or win the game.
All right. And if I have to ask you for a lunchtime prediction for tomorrow, if Wasim says 2 for 80, you're going to just go with that?
No.
You made him go
we,
first just to show his hand. That was dirty play. Dan.
I think Jameson and Southey will be tough again in the morning session, and runs will be at a premium. So, look, I'll say 60 for 3 just to mix it up.
All right, fair enough. I tell you what, this is a massive innings, not just for the context of this game, but I wonder if some Indian selectors are thinking about a decision on the basis of who gets runs in the second inning. Shubman Gill's done, Mayank Agarwal, Virat Kohli to return, Shreyas Iyer. Gee, it's all fun. And I will ask Wasim Jaffer this question in a couple of days' time, or maybe tomorrow. So join us then on ESPN Cricket for Match Day. Big thank you to Daniel and to Wasim, and we'll have their thoughts as this fascinating Test match continues to roll on. Does look like advantage to India, but without counting New Zealand out of it. We'll see you on day 4.